And we're live.
Good evening, good afternoon, or morning, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. This is Rebecca Jernigan coming to you live from the heart of America to around the globe via the World Wide Web. We're journeying into the realms of the known and the unknown. You're listening and watching Journeys with Rebecca right here on Project Camelot TV Network. Good day, everyone. We have a really fantastic guest today. His name is Ernesto Ortiz with his book, The Akashic Records, Sacred Exploration of Your Soul's Journey with the Wisdom of the Collective Consciousness. Now, this is a most comprehensive book that has really ever been written on this vitally important subject. It's the culmination of almost 2 decades of immersion by Ernesto himself and professionally into this most valuable tool for individual healing, growth, and self realization. Now, as you guys are listening, you can go ahead and venture to his website. That's Journeys to the Heart, and two is the number two. So it's journeytotheheart.com. That's journey number two, theheart.com. And I invite everyone to go and check that out if you don't want to do that while we're on the air. Certainly, definitely keep that in mind for after the show so that you can go check it out. And it also tells you how to get the book. And it will give you a idea of the type of work that Ernesto is involved in and has been through the years. So with that, Ernesto, are you about ready there?
I'm trying to bring more light into the picture.
Well, you're just handsome the way you are, and we're
Oh, thank you
okay.
so much. Thank you for that.
And,
Okay.
and now, oh, you know what? It's great to have you here. And I want to tell everyone that we did have a little bit of a issue getting started, but we're here. We're all just going to take a deep breath and just relax. And Ernesto, you're going to be talking to us today about the Akashic Records. And this is a subject that's very near and dear to my own heart.
Hmm.
And I absolutely love this idea of you being here. You have a little different take on it than most people. I think you've delved into it and expanded the idea of what the Akashic Records are. So I think that may be a really good place for us to start today is for you to give an explanation of what are the Akashic Records, and again, a little bit more about your own self and how you came on this journey of almost 2 decades to get to this point to create this book.
What do you want me to start with? My personal.
Yes,
Uh,
your personal journey, and then we'll get into the Akashic Records definition.
okay. Um, my personal journey has been just rich, beautiful, exquisite time on this planet. I was born in Mexico City in a very well-to-do family, and they own coffee plantations in the state of Veracruz. So most of the time that the vacations and things like that, we spend at the ranch, La Finca, and right there, I had the amazing opportunity to see um, the lifestyle of two different worlds: the worlds of money, like my parents, etc., and then the simple world of the workers that pick the coffee, etc., etc. And I gravitated to that world. And to make a long story short, they welcomed me into their homes, into their lifestyle, and there I started observing Mexican shamanism. I didn't know what it was. I was 8, 9 years old, but I was there with them. The elders of this group of people, a man and a woman, were the shamans, and they were doing ceremony all the time, rituals, limpias, healing sessions, and they came to me and they started beating me with herbs and spitting blowing alcohol in my face, and I was just like fascinated by this world that was so opposite to my family's world. But that world just intrigued me so deeply that I kept going into their home and to be with them, up until the point that when I was 12 years old, the man said, okay, he didn't say anything. He was doing a cleansing with an egg on this woman, and he was stopping here and there in several places. And after a while, he finished, he took that egg and cracked it, and what came out was completely black like molasses. when I saw that, I remember so well, like if it was yesterday, that I said, wow, I don't know what that is, but I want to learn how to do that. So that first statement, such a strong affirmation of not knowing what that was, but I wanted to learn how to do that, is what began to or continue opening the doors of Mexican shamanism. So, later, years later, 4 or 5 years later, I was deeper into this world, understanding what it was. I got involved with teacher plants, what I call them, and that was a tremendous expansion of consciousness that I experienced. And from that point on, I have been extremely lucky to have studied with world-renowned shamans, teachers, etc., and as well as little shamans here and there that no one will ever know except for the people in their tribes, their community in different places around the world. And so the spiritual life has always been a part of me from the time that I can remember. And now to bring a lifetime of stories into more the Akashic Records. Uh, 25 years ago, roughly, a friend of mine invited me to come to go to an Akashic Record workshop. Unfortunately, I could not attend because I was teaching that same weekend. But sometime after that, she asked me to if she would want me to if I want her to open my Akashic Records. So I said yes, and that was my introduction to the system that I'm aware of, and I have been teaching for 20 plus years. I knew what the Akashic Records were because I had read, Edgar Casey, Nostradamus, and Alice Bailey, and others that use the Akashic Records as a system to retrieve information. But this was a one-on-one, the first time exchange with someone that could actually access my Akashic Records, and that just opened this whole world for me to explore, and has been a 25-year-old exploration with the Akashic Records.
I'm We're having just a slight bit of issues here, so that's why I keep turning my video off to keep these signals strong. So I apologize to everyone for that. So I'm kind of watching that to make sure that our connection stays as strong as possible. So by the way, your story is pretty fascinating, from being born and raised in a well-to-do family, for the lack of a better way of saying it, to the very simple life of the shamans and the people. And wow, that says a lot about your character right there, Ernesto, in a very positive way.
Thank you, thank you. I think it was just purely good karma that I came with,
There you
really,
go.
because I was sitting there in the middle, looking to the right and observing the world of eating with china and real silverware and chandeliers and the whole thing, and the other one is sitting on the floor in this little woven straw, straw mattresses, eating rice, beans, and tortillas. So I mean, it was could not be more more opposite. And then the choice was clear for me. I mean, crystal clear that the direction that I wanted to take my life was in the direction of that simple life, another life of tuxedos and parties and perfumes and whatever.
Wow. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. Seriously, Ernesto, about a more simple life. I think this society specifically, or this time, I guess, that all of us live in, we're pretty caught up in materialism and what it looks like, not what it is really. And so I think there's a lot to be said for what you're talking about. So let's talk a little bit specifically about the Akashic Records and what you might have found during your exploration and your research through the years of doing that for other people. I'm assuming you've probably done this for yourself as well. Um, when we talk about the Akashic Records as the I call it the file cabinet of all of our experiences that we've all had. It's kind of like our records, but it's also not just the records of the individuals. It's a record of this, Earth, and it's a record of the solar system, et cetera, and so forth. I mean, it's a record of all things, the Akashic Records. So, if you will, it- talk a little bit about how you expanded that I guess, journey to someone's records to retrieve them. How you expanded that to include the teachings of the shamanism with that. I think that's an interesting kind of blending of things there. Shamanism to the retrieval of the Akashic records of someone else, and then the explanation of how do you share that with somebody.
Well, in my personal life, my private practice is based on Tibetan Buddhism. So, I mean, we have what may be perceived as different worlds, and that is one of the biggest problems that we have today in the world, and that is that we separate everything, that we want to categorize everything in different compartments. And spirituality is something that we do at home, but at work we cannot be spiritual. Is this battle that is constantly happening between us as to the separation that we have created in life. And I think that I don't think I what I have been doing over the past many years is to bring everything into the oneness that it deserves, because nothing is truly separate from anything else or from ourselves. So for me, it was a very simple, easy way to blend shamanism with the Akashic Records with Tibetan Buddhism, because they all have the same origin, so to speak. And by learning a system that I learned, and I have just refined that system with my own life experience. I don't teach from something that I read on a book. I don't teach from a conversation that I had with someone. I teach from practical experiences. So my teaching is all based on what I have received from life, from shamanism, the Akashic Records, from anywhere possible, and then put them into the container that is my mind and process it there to bring out the system that I, share with people. So this is basically what the Akashic Records you mentioned a while ago is perfectly well described. From the Akashic Records are the recordings of our soul's evolution from the time of our soul's inception to this present moment. And yes, we absolutely have hundreds of lifetimes stored in this Akashic field. And it is our book of life, and everyone has one, and it is imprinted by the actions, by the feelings, the emotions that we have in life. And this is what creates the richness of material that is within our own Akashic records. Now, most people in this lifetime are suffering. Everybody is suffering. The Buddha said that this is the lifetime of suffering, and it's almost impossible to escape some type of suffering, as subtle as it may be. But what the Akashic Records can do is give you the ability to look straight into this book of life with the help of the record keepers, and then look at the life that you have created, elements that maybe you're bringing from a previous life, but the past is the past. What is really important is the present. And look at everything that has been created in your life that is not serving you and is not allowing you to live the life of your dreams. And then having the means, the tools to heal every aspect of what is going on in your mind, any condition, addictions, codependencies, fears, lack of forgiveness, on and on and on, anything at all that is holding you back from achieving the greatest inner potential that is within you. And most people have not even began to truly tap into that, although in this past 15 years or so, the world is awakening, which is a beautiful thing. 15, 20 years ago, very few people knew what the Akashic Records were. But today, you know, there are numerous books out on the Akashic Records, people that are teaching with integrity and without integrity, but just delivering the message. So the world is awakening. It's a spiritual awakening that's taking place, and that is something very beautiful. Now, what if everyone that is awakening doesn't really run away from their fears, but faces those fears with a tool that is guiding, that is loving, that is kind, and then be able to eliminate that which really doesn't serve you, us anymore, and replace it for something that has a higher potential. The Akashic Records are a field of vibration that is inside of ourselves, but it's also outside of ourselves. Is the membrane that wraps around from the tiniest of cells in our body to the largest of planets in the universe. The primordial essence of this is love, and that is our essence. So how can we, the Akashic Records are here right now. If you were vibrationally adjusted to the frequency of the Akashic Records, you could actually feel them right here right now, because they are everywhere. So how do we fine tune our senses? How do we increase our vibrational frequency to the point that if the Akashic Records are traveling up here, then there is the frequency down here where we are. How do we bring this frequency up to here so we can match? And when we match, then the magic begins, because the potential is unlimited. So what are the Akashic Records? Well, the question is, what do you want them to be? Because they can be as big and as vast as your imagination. So when you're able to plug in and you want to look within at the patterns of limitation that I spoke about, then it's easy to do that. It's just enter a dialogue with the record keepers to be able to look deep within. But if you want to go beyond that and use the Akashic Records in just about every possible way of living a life, you can introduce them to your profession, to public speaking, to the radio, to any place at all. And then it's as if we are now vibrating at a much higher frequency, because we are capable of being connected to this Akashic field that is vibrating at a higher frequency. Now, in that particular field, it's as if you enter the mind of God, so to speak. Now, the mind of God, imagine a mansion with a main portal or numerous portals, but once you enter that portal, what is going to open is another room with unlimited windows and unlimited doors. And then you have a choice to either fly through one of the windows or walk through one of the doors, because the potential is infinite. And that is the beauty of the Akashic Records, that you can go as far as your own personal potential, and what you perceive to be your maximum potential right now is not. It is not at all. Anyway, I can keep talking and give you more information. I was just in France for the past 2 months, and the last week, which was a week ago, I was one of the speakers at the International Symposium of New Consciousness and New Humanity. And Professor Irving Laszlo was there, which is an authority at a scientific level to prove the validity of the Akashic Records, was there. And it was this beautiful merging of science and spirituality. And that is what is happening in the awakening of the world today. Science and spirituality is coming together. The ancient validation of many different things that we have known in the consciousness field are now validated by by science, and it is just incredibly exciting what is taking place in the world today.
First of all, Brian, my producer, his mic is open. I'm not sure if he can hear me, but his mic is open in case he needs to know that. Um, but Ernesto, you've said an awful lot. I mean, my little brain was just a reeling there for a minute. And it's all good because I'm right there with everything that you're saying. It's absolutely perfect what you're saying. Let's talk a little bit about who you called the record keepers. Um, Now, whenever I have personally myself visited the Akashic Records, I've always called them the guardians and not the record keepers. And I'm looking at what you have said, and I've probably been a little bit of erroneous myself with calling them a guardian in a sense, but maybe not. I mean, maybe
Not at all.
it's just semantics, right? Record keepers,
It's, it's,
guardians.
a,
There's
it's another way. It's another form of separation.
yeah, yeah.
The guardian and the record keeper. So they're separate, but the truth is that they're not.
No, they're the
They,
same.
they are the guardians, the record keepers, the masters, the lords of Akasha. They're all the same. These are beings that are in this Akashic realm, that is way above the etheric plane. In the beings that have graduated from the school of life, where their highest scores, so to speak. So we have, the Buddhas and the Jesus and the Marys and everybody's up there in this beautiful realm. Some that have chosen to taken a path of more of a bodhisattva, so they're much closer to the earth, and some that have not, so they're much higher up there. So the record keepers, the lords of Akasha, are fully the masters that are in charge of the information that we give life. So they are recording that information and inserting that information into our book of life. That's why they are the record keepers. But at the same time, if in my class or the prayer that we use to access the Akashic records, calls for the masters and teachers. No, so a lot of people get confused. Who's the master and who's the teacher? They're the same. They're actually the same. It's just once again is this thing. The masters are the record keepers, are the guardians, are the lords of Akasha. These are the supreme beings that are overseeing our lives with great amount of kindness and compassion and love, etc. So when we enter the Akashic field, I call the Akashic Records the Library of Congress of the Soul. Okay, so imagine entering the Library of Congress in Washington D.C. They have just about every amount of information that you can think of. In fact, they have over 650 miles of shelf space, over 242 million items, 32 million books in 470 languages. I mean, it's vast. Or imagine just simply going into Google, okay? And it's everything that you can possibly think is right there. So the masters are the keepers of all of that.
And then some.
And then some. Now, who are the teachers? When you enter that Akashic field, it's as if you enter this Library of Congress of the Soul and you go to the front desk and you say, I want a specific information on what is your interest? Art, music, a specific art, a specific type of art or music, architecture, UFOs, gardening, spirituality, shamanism, anything at all that you can possibly think. What is going to happen is that the master that is going to become your teacher is the one that shows up. And that is the one that is going to be tutoring you on that specific subject that you asked about. So that is the way that I look at it.
And I have to say is that um, from my understanding, from my own experiences, is that when you ask for a teacher, one appears, and same thing as what you're talking about there. And then when that master teacher has taught us what we can absorb and what we're capable of at that level, then we go forward and we begin to um, work, I guess, with that new information and we become more evolved, a little bit more conscious, hopefully. I mean, this is the way it's supposed to work, right? When we ask for that. And then we get to a point where we feel a little plateaued. And so then again, we ask for another teacher, and another one shows that will help us in our journey on this next level of evolution that we're on.
But with the
I,
Akashic Records, I'm sorry to interrupt.
oh
With the
no, you're
Akashic
fine.
Records, we don't have one teacher.
Oh no.
We have multiple teachers based on our interest. So if we're doing personal healing, if someone had a traumatic childhood and you want to have the understanding of what karma created, you created to have that experience in your life, then the masters, the master healers, the ones that are going to be able to guide you through the process of healing those wounds will show up. But if the next day you ask uh, for someone, for a master to come and help you in developing a new type of music because you're a musician, then that master will show up and will become your teacher in that. So we can have multiple teachers, and it's not like we outgrow at a master. It is just simply that we outgrow ourselves,
That's right.
and then we're capable of moving forward with with lighter weight on our shoulders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as you've been talking a lot about the healing aspect of the Akashic records and all of the other wonderful things that can be done while you're there, while you're researching, investigating, becoming acquainted with it. A lot of people will ask, and your book is filled with, by the way, your book, The Akashic Records, is filled with, and I'm going to see if we can hold this up here real quick because I have it in front of me. There it is. How's that? The Akashic Records by Ernesto Ortiz.
Uh,
I, it's filled with step-by-step instructions as well as some diagrams. I mean, it's got all kinds of really good stuff for people who are visual as opposed to more cerebral, that kind of a thing. So you really expanded on this. I mean, I can see why it took you a little while to put all this together because it took a little while for you to gather the information to put it in here. It's
well,
absolutely fabulous
thank you. Thank you
information.
so much.
It really is a book for the time. So as I'm looking through all of this, if someone was to pick up your book and they wanted to figure out how to access their own Akashic records, what would you tell them besides just reading the book from your book? Would you tell them would be the best place for them to start or to
The
focus on?
biggest obstacle that anyone will experience is doubt. If you have doubt, then you are lacking trust. If you lack trust and you doubt, basically you are closing the doors of your heart. If you read the material, come to one of my classes, whatever it may be, and you come with an open heart, if you come with the mind, with a beginner's mind, that's what I tell people. One of the first things that I say in my classes, if you're here with a beginner's mind, this is the right place for you. But if you are here with the expert mind, then your mind is already full with the I already know that. And that I already know that may come from something that people have read, but not truly transferred that intellectual knowledge to practical experience. And that is where I want people to go, into a practical experience with the Akashic Records. So the book, it really is just is it's actually the book that I did not want to write. Um, I don't, yeah, I didn't want to write it. I kept receiving the guidance from the masters saying, you must write this book. And I going, no, because I'm a little more old fashioned. I love the oral tradition. The prayer is sacred. So I have to protect it and not put it in writing. And so they kept saying to me, write the book, write the book. So finally, make a long story short, 2 years ago, after I finished my annual retreat in Bali, I was going to rent a motorcycle to go and photograph around the island. And they kept telling me, write the book. So the day that I'm ready to go on my little motorcycle adventure, I fall down and break my left wrist. And what the masters told me is, we told you that, we want you to write the book. And then I said, once again, but the prayer. And they said to me, stop thinking that you are so important. Write the book and let us be the ones that are responsible for who the book is going to go to.
Ah, there you go.
And that was such a humbling experience.
Yes.
It was so beautiful that the book actually was written in less than 3 months. So,
Wow.
and,
So
and
let's talk about the prayer.
yeah.
That prayer obviously means just a tremendous amount to you from your heart and your soul. Is this a prayer that you say before you enter into the Akashic Records, or is this the prayer that you say all the time, or both?
No, no, it's this particular prayer is the prayer that we use exclusively to open the Akashic Records. Remember a little while ago I said that the Akashic Records are up here and
Yep.
we're down here, vibrationally speaking. So when we read the prayer before we enter the Akashic Records with a specific formula that is all there in the book and my classes, it's very simple, nothing complicated. As we say the prayer, our energy is going to go all the way up to be able to connect, to plug in into that higher frequency, and from that higher frequency have the ability to dialogue with the masters or to use our imagination in this expanded way to go on a journey with Akasha. um, so yeah, that is and the prayer came to us from the Mayan tradition. It was given to an individual. His name was Johnny Pershenska years ago. He received the prayer. He passed it down to a woman, Mary Parker, a few years, quite a number of years ago. Then I learned this directly from a friend of mine, Denise, and then I became a personal friend and a student of Mary Parker. And so this is the original prayer that has been down to us. So for many people, like in Tibetan Buddhism, for example, lineage is very important. So if lineage is important to you, then we are very close to the original source of the energy, because this man Johnny received the prayer from Mayan elders, and then Johnny passed it down um, to Mary. Then Mary passed it down to my friend Denise. She passed it down to me, but then I went and became a good friend and a student of Mary, and up until the point that I had to leave that organization and start teaching on my own.
Well, I love the idea of the prayer, and I love the idea of the energy. As a student of some different disciplines myself, I recognize that the way something is worded and is put together, it does carry a frequency and a vibration. It's been well thought out and put together in order to
Sure.
increase that space. So,
Yeah.
again, uh, I'm glad that you explained even more of that, so that when people go and buy this book, they have an understanding of this is pretty complete as far as from step one to, the point of arrival and what you do after you get there. A lot of books fall short of that, and there's no shortage of that in yours as well. So we talk a little bit about healing, right? You talk a lot about healing actually in your book. And first of all, I'd like for you just to share with the audience, what does healing mean to you, and then let's talk a little bit about how healing can transpire, and then move into the idea of maybe some karma stuff, or the term that we use is karma.
Oh, I mean, healing. I mean, that's such a huge word, and we can probably
Yes.
spend the next hour talking about healing. So there is mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual healing, and each of those is a world within itself. So to think about the word healing, for me, my mind just immediately goes, "Pah,"
Yeah.
of of doors that open and windows to what healing means. But any aspect of the self that is short of vibrating at the highest, most beautiful frequency that each of us can vibrate at needs attention, needs to be balanced, needs healing. Now, healing is something that, or the physical body is the last one that receives the impact of something that starts at a much, much higher level. It starts at the level of consciousness, of pure consciousness. And whatever it is that we are dealing with because of personal experiences in life, past life, material, etc., then as we begin to explore those elements, it comes to a point in which the balance that we are looking for appears in our life when we are connected to this healing potential that is within us. So, karma is something that it truly descends or comes down from this higher plane. So, it goes from the etheric plane down to to the emotional plane, from the emotional plane to the mental plane, and then the physical body is the one that receives the impact. So we need to heal all of the bodies. We need to heal all aspects of the self by looking at all of the patterns that we have created. If you're unhappy, if you're not living a happy, healthy life, then there is something out of balance, and that something out of balance is what needs to uh, be looked at. Now, can that be karmic? Yes, absolutely. But let's remember that karma is neutral. Karma is not positive or negative. Karma is what we make it. So if we have good actions, if we are compassionate, kind, benevolent, tolerant, loving with others, then we're accumulating positive karma. But if we're hateful and we live a life of vengeance that we don't forgive and that sort of thing, then we are accumulating negative karma. So sometime, balance is going to be required. The universe, Akasha, requires harmony and balance within and without. So then we will be able to have the opportunity to look at all of these elements and see how karma is being playing out in our lives. And when we look and understand at all of our relationships through the karmic lens, then it's just such a beautiful thing, because nothing, absolutely nothing, as painful as it may be, a physical experience of pain, suffering, etc., we can extract something, maybe if it's just a little tiny grain of sand, like a little atom, but just look, a little atom can create incredible power, you know, and that is what we need to look at, and then embrace that power and heal our karma. And that is where the Akashic Records come in, because the Akashic fields are a very dense field of material that is floating around the universe. The function of this material is to record the energetic impressions that we give it. And that is the recording of our soul's evolution. So if the universe is recording in this dense field this information from past actions, what it means is that we can enter this field, travel back in time to the moment in which that action was done. The event cannot change. If you beat somebody up, murder someone, whatever it may be in this life or a previous life, that cannot be changed. But the energetics, the emotions that you emanated and the person receiving the impact of this exchange emanated, is what is important to look at. So if we go back in time through the Akashic fields, we can, from the us that is here present, conscious right now, that us can give the love, the kindness, the compassion to the us that acted in the wrong way in the past. And that us in the past can now communicate to the individual that we transgressed against, and then balance it out, forgiveness, love, and then bring that all of that back into the now. What we just did, I just took you through the process of clearing your karma. And this is the most beautiful way and the most beautiful thing that the Akashic fields, the Akashic Records, have to offer us.
Absolutely. I agree with that 110%. Thank you for that. It was a really, really wonderful little journey there that you took us all on, Ernesto. I appreciate that.
Uh, Thank you.
Um, Now, I've been noticing that you have been using the word Akasha.
Yeah,
For the audience out there, will you please explain the term Akasha for those who may not understand it?
yeah. Akasha is a Sanskrit word that means primordial or primary substance. And this primordial substance, the main essence is love. So that is what Akasha is. And this is a word that you find in many languages. In Hindu, in Balinese, there is a word Akasha or Akash or something similar to that, which means just simply like the substance that envelops the universe.
Ah, love that. Love that. Love that. Um, so I'm going to jump back a little bit to the prayer for just a moment because um, I think I would love for you maybe to explain to people um, why structures are put together like that, why it's worded the way that it is, and then also about when you are there in the Akashic Records, how to ask the right questions or how to frame or word the questions because it's also something that I talk about quite frequently,
Yeah.
and so I'm excited to hear you talk about it.
So, yeah, yeah. So you asked me two very
Yes, different questions.
different things. One is uh, the structure of the prayer,
Yes.
okay, and the other one, what was the other one?
The other one is about how to structure questions.
Okay, yeah, that is extremely important. I call it the art of questioning. And we don't if we don't have the right way of asking a question, then you're not going to be able to get the right answer. The masters, the lords of Akasha, the guides, etc., are they're non-attached to the way that you are using free will in your life. That is why we have it. It's the greatest gift, the gift of free will. So if we ask a question to the lords of Akasha, and that question has a yes or no answer or a very short answer, if we're satisfied with that, they're going to sit back and they're not going to give us more because it's an exchange that is taking place. So it is through knowing how to formulate questions that a conversation is going to take place. And from that conversation and through the art of question, we can extract what is needed for our soul's growth and soul's evolution, healing, etc. So, yeah, I have 4 levels of the Akashic Records, and each level we go deeper and deeper into the art of questioning. But it's very well explained on the book as well.
Absolutely.
And the other one was about the prayer. The sacred words have a vibration. Every word has a vibrational frequency when it comes out of our mouth. If you put your hand in front of your mouth, maybe 2 inches away from it, you can feel your breath. That breath is qualified with the thoughts or the thinking that you're putting out through words. And the words carry the photons, the energy that we want to give. So in this type of exchange, sacred words create higher vibration within ourselves, and other words that are not hateful, etc., create a lower vibration within ourselves. So there are multiple mantras that are written in Hindu and Sanskrit, Tibetan, etc., sacred languages. And the prayer that we have was originally written in Mayan, translated to Spanish, and then from Spanish to English, and now multiple other languages. What is important is for the vibrational affinity of the prayer based on the words to remain alive. So if we change one word, two words of the prayer, then the vibration is not going to be the same. So it is like a recipe that is given to you. The recipe is 2 eggs, a pound of sugar, and 5 pounds of whatever else, and you follow that formula, you're going to end up with the right recipe. If you decide to change that to half of one and 3/4 more of the other, then you're not going to end up with the right formula. And that's what the prayer does, is the right formula to enter into these higher vibrational realms called the Akashic fields. Unfortunately, there is a lot of people out there that have changed the wording of the Akashic Record prayer to what used, I don't know, maybe to gratify the ego, I'm not sure, or maybe they have truly received the guidance. I don't know. I'm not a judge. I just simply observe it. But what I do know is that I'm going to give you an example. My website is journeytotheheart.com, right?
Right.
Journey, then with the number two, theheart.com. Uh, Years ago, I sent an email to my friend saying, go check out my website, journeytotheheart.com. And within 30 minutes, some people start emailing me back. And my friend John said to me, Ernesto, what kind of business did you get into? I said, what do you mean? He goes, go click on the link that you sent us. So I went and clicked on that link, and it opened to a porn website.
Oh, my goodness
Yeah,
gracious.
because what happened is I changed journey to the heart to journey to the heat.
Oh,
One letter, one word, and that immediately took everybody in the completely opposite direction. So I
yes.
sent people to the heat instead of the heart. So I emailed my friends. I told them, I was so hot to send you to the heart that I'm sorry.
That's a cute story,
Yeah,
sort of.
but it is a cute story because it's the perfect lesson that I need when I teach
Right.
as to the importance of the prayer. And by changing one word, by changing one letter, we change the vibrational affinity that gives us the opportunity to plug into these Akashic fields. Now, it's as if I say, I don't know if you're familiar with mantras, but the Om
Yes.
Mani Padme Hum, very simple mantra, the mantra of compassion. Let's say that I decide that, well, I don't know, that Om Mani Padme Hum needs to be changed, and I'm going to change it to something else just because I get in my mind that that is the guidance that I'm receiving is to change the Om Mani Padme Hum to another mantra. Then we're losing the integrity there of that vibrational frequency. And what what it's all about is really is the ability to use ancient techniques, ancient formulas, void of the ego that we are so wrapped up here in this modern world. Everybody wants to be a guru. Everybody wants to be a teacher. This is the spiritual supermarket.
Yeah.
You know, this is crazy. So let's just go back to the basics. Go back to the heart. Just go back to that place of devotion that is within ourselves, and to strip ourselves from our arch enemy, which is the ego, the alter ego. And I want to tell you a very quick story of a monk that had been on retreat for like 7 years and came out of a retreat, and he was going to give a lecture, or he had to give a lecture to a group of 200, 300 people. And he noticed that right before the lecture, his hands were really wet and sticky. He was nervous. And throughout his whole speech, he continued noticing that his hands were wet and sticky. At the end of that presentation, he told his family, his monastery, etc., that he was going to go back to retreat on retreat for 7 more years because his ego was involved, and that is the reason why his hands were sweaty and sticky.
Ah.
So stripping the self from the ego is not an easy task, but that is something that it is my greatest desire, no matter where I go to the in the world to teach, is to tell people, don't wear different masks. That creates that separation that this conversation started with. The mask that I wear at work, the mask that I wear with my family, the mask that I wear with my friends, the one that I wear with my spiritual group. I mean, all these, the right everything, let's just strip ourselves from all of that and remove all the masks and just get to the point of being real. Just being ourselves, come from the heart, emanate the essence of love, learn the language of love, and teach it to others. That's the language of Akasha. And then, speak the words of love, always at all times, live your life to love. I just created a group less than a month ago on Facebook. It's called that. Live your life to love instead of live your life to be in fear, to criticize others, to, I don't know, to be less than, the beautiful, beautiful being that you are.
Right. That's lovely. Well, as you're sitting there, there's a few things that kind of popped in, and one of the things you talk about in your book is grace, the grace points. Um, and it was a term that came in while you were talking as well, and it kind of reminded me that that's part of your book as well. We've got about 5 minutes left,
Uh-oh.
so maybe, I know, it just flies by, doesn't it? Especially when you're talking about something you really love to. If you will, talk a little bit about the grace points, and then, uh, you know, anything else that you kind of want to share with the audience before we have to let you go today.
Thank you. Grace points are physical points of action that it manifests in our hands. When we are in the Akashic Records and we are exploring a subject, let's say that you're exploring the relationship that you have with your mother. When there is an untransmuted, unfinished emotional component to that relationship, it will show up on your left hand because that's the feminine side as a point of action somewhere in the palm of the hand. And we discover that that grace point is active by pinching it, squeezing it. And there's different grace points for different reasons, but they act for different uses as well. The ego disconnect point, the main grace point, body release point, I mean, so many different grace points. Well, 10 actually in total. That by pinching it or holding it, by massaging it, if it's tender to the touch, then means that it's active. And as we explore with the Akashic Records and continue massaging that grace point or that point of action, it's as if we remove the little plug that is on top of a pressure cooker. And we start letting go of the steam that is based on the emotional component that we're going through, to the point that when we get to be clear, it's as if we can now open the pressure cooker without any danger of exploding and let go, getting rid of the contents. So that grace points are very, very valuable and useful because they can also be indicators of an energy that needs to be followed. And I don't have the time right now with less than 4 minutes or 3, whatever it is, to go into that. But that is the most delicious form of healing past lives or present life. But, I have explored all of these myself. And grace point number 2, which is the body release point, led me to the understanding that whatever I was feeling on my upper back was in direct relation to a woman that I was dating. And through that understanding and with the Akashic Records, be able to get to the point of completely understand it, forgive it, heal it, and end it up in the most beautiful, loving way.
Perfect. Wow, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
You are the first that I've heard that has identified the points on the left hand as calling them grace points. So that's extremely fascinating to me.
They're actually in both hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Left hand is feminine components, right hand masculine components.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, you're the first one that I've ever heard talk about them specifically. I use my hands for different things, but and to work on them, but I never knew that that's what I was doing uh, until I read the book and read about the grace points. I'm like, okay, so you've given me some new tools in this book, and I
Oh God,
absolutely love this.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's absolutely fabulous, and I hope for the audience out there that they will certainly go get your book and read it. Anybody that's interested in taking this journey into their self discovery, self realization, self actualization, and healing. Again, one of those terms that I think is misused because it's such a wide word to be used in so many different ways. It's amazing, but I really absolutely do encourage people to go and get the book. And speaking of which, you have given us your website today. Give us your website again. Let the people know where they can purchase the book as well.
Thank you so much. Well, they can purchase through Amazon or any of those outlets, or my website, which is journeytotheheart.com. And they can journey with a TO is completely fine. It'll get you there. So it's journeytotheheart.com.
Perfect. And Ernesto, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with today as far as any information or anything that's coming up, or just as a closing out of the end of 2015? Is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with today?
I would say, we can do it. We can definitely change the vibration, the frequency of the world. We are all emanating emotions all the time. And the electromagnetic fields of the world are recording the output of that emotion can be seen at a scientific level in a beautiful way. Let's come together, let's get rid of your fears, emotions that are keeping you, not happy and vibrating at your optimal, most loving way of being. Let's come together, meditate, and teach the children. They are truly. We have heard this on and on and on, but just look at the world right now, the violence, the hatred that is out there, but at the same time, the love and the kindness. So if you vibrate more with love and kindness, then just vibrate that more and more every single day, to the point that we can come together and sit and meditate, 50, 100,000, a million, 10 million people meditating at the same time. In 1 or 2 generations, in 2 or 3 generations, we can change the world. So let's do it. We are the ones that we have been waiting for.
Yes, very good. Absolutely excellent. Thank you, Ernesto Ortiz, everybody, the Akashic Records. And for all of you, I wish you the best day ever. Until we meet again, where will your life's journey lead you? Many blessings, everybody, and good day.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that was fun.